When you have a disturbance to any ground, and it could be a natural disturbance like right now, the floods, hurricane, drought, fire that causes the ground to be bare, Mother Nature is going to rush in and protect that. She sees it as a wound, like I get a scab. That's to protect my surface and keep my boundary of my skin intact. And so Mother Nature does the same thing, and who does that are annual weeds. That's their job.
A lot of these weeds are here because this land was stressed when I'm guessing this housing development came in and they kind of reshaped and restructured this land. And so when it was disturbed, Mother Nature's Band-Aid is annuals and biennials and the succession of plants.
So they rush in. So you have cheatgrass here, kochia, sunflowers, lamb's quarters, tumbleweeds, Russian thistle, halogeton, all of those annual weeds. That is their job in plant succession, is to rush in and cover that wound and protect the surface and hold your water in. Next, if you don't do anything, you're going to see biannual plants, weeds, which would be all of the thistles except Canada thistle. Common mullein, hound's tongue, dyer's woad. Takes 2 years for it to make a seed and get that root going down so it's starting to build soil structure and bring other things up. So that's the biannual. You have bare ground, annual, biannual, then you start to see perennials. Often you'll see the perennial weeds first, leafy spurge, Russian knapweed, bindweed, Dalmatian toadflax, Canada thistle. You'll see those, and then you see grass, and this is like doing nothing, so in a dry environment like Wyoming, this could be 400 years for this to progress. But it's the natural progression.
Farmers, ranchers, and communities don't usually have 400 years to wait for Mother Nature to return to a healthy soil quality that can sustain feed for their livestock or even a beautiful green space in their community.
The bare ground where you have that disturbance, it must heal, like your scab. It must heal and have the nutrition before it can move forward. You can't just plant grass there.
If you have good soil, you're going to have good grasses. It's pretty much impossible not to.
In an effort to restore healthy soil, commercial goat herders have taken to Wyoming's ranches and communities to combat weeds in a more natural way than with chemical herbicides.
Cattle and horses are grazers and they eat all grass. Goats are browsers and grass is their last choice.
The goats will eat one thing, the cows eat the other thing. And that way you're really taking advantage of what you have on your ranch. You're increasing your livestock, you're increasing your profitability, your carrying capacity, and hopefully your bottom dollar. You have more weight to sell, more meat to sell. That's kind of what we're at.
Devil's Tower Goats runs their goat herds as contract grazers. They send their yearling goats to market after helping mitigate noxious weeds from ranches and from rangeland.
The goats eat very, very little grasses. And it's also like an instant result, right? You see it like, oh wow, you were here? There's still all that feed, but the spurge is gone. So a lot of ranchers have realized, well, this might be better than spraying. We pretty much try to overgraze the leafy spurge. The goats come through, they aerate the soil, they fertilize it. After we come through cleaning up the spurge, the other grasses have a chance to compete and maybe outcompete the spurge.
Goat Green LLC, on the other hand, is a service contractor who develops their herd to work everything from open range to city lots. Their goats aren't raised for slaughter, but strictly for these weed service contracts.
It's undoing the wrongs that have been done in the last 100 to 500 years of how this land has been used. Overgrazing by cattle and horses, you get all these problems because horses and cattle don't eat them. And it's been overgrazed and now cut up by ranchettes and subdividing and roads and fence lines. Permanent fence lines are so terrible of destroying the flow of energy on the land and the flow of the livestock, the flow of the wildlife, the flow of everything. It disrupts that. I want to bring the exact opposite back.
You know, so we're after just improving the soil quality. A lot of people get hung up on what's above ground as the symptoms, and then they want to spray or something to kill what's above ground. And we're focused on promoting life in the soil to allow the native desired plants to grow.
Some of these noxious weeds we have in the area, one of the reasons they can survive so well is they have a tremendous root system. And they can go so much further down than the normal grasses and normal vegetation does, that they can reach way down there, and so they'll pull up the nutrients that the other grasses can't get to.
So all of these plants, you know, they have different purposes and different skills. So they all do their thing, and all the roots go to different depths.
So by either trampling them on the ground or on the surface, and then trampling them and putting that nutrients back into the topsoil, or by an animal eating that vegetation, you know, as the whole nutrient cycle starts over with nutrients that nobody else is able to get to.
This is getting broken down and turned back to carbon and nitrogen and sulfur and put back down. See, when it's standing up like this does the soil no good. It has to be soil contact and trampled in. So the hoof action of the goats is a very big deal. So they recycle everything right in place.
All the nutrients above ground we're recycling into the ground, which is 100% organic matter. It's, you know, there's no viable seed that goes through a goat system. It's like 0.001% chance. And it's because of their narrow triangular mouths, and they chew like in a lateral jaw movement, sickle, kind of like a sickle, and that destroys and crushes those seeds. And so then when it passes through in their ruminants, when it passes through their system, you're left with a small pellet that is completely, you know, ground up, chewed up, and there's no viable seed in there. And we try to time it so that we graze those seeds and, you know, all of the flowers above ground on the stem, and that way it, you know, depletes that plant and they can't reproduce.
The goat herds are also useful in fire mitigation efforts and waterway bank preservation. The goats can develop an ability to eat certain weeds based on their gut biome that is then passed on through the herd, making these contract goat herds even more valuable with time.
This is a fun, joyful, alive energy that is doing the work on the land. So it's bringing everything to life, and there's a joy that goes with it. You can't get that with a mowing machine. You can't get it with chemicals.
As these industrious creatures take on the weeds that cows and horses and wildlife won't eat, they're doing a great service by improving the nutrition of the soil and giving grasses a chance to flourish, all without the harmful effects of chemical herbicides and machinery.
So if you could, with your perfectly calibrated eyes, see that recycled whatever they're eating behind us, you would see carbon, nitrogen, sulfur, boron, magnesium, calcium. That's what I do with these goats, is hurry up and eat all of these weeds, recycle them in the gut, and then put them right back on the ground as pure organic fertilizer, and there's some right there. The land ought to function like a giant sponge to hold water. That means the soil is full of organic matter and can hold all the water available to the plants. So that's what we should be managing for.